Today we got a story time of this girl who got expelled because she was doing something during Zoom class that she didn't think that other people could have seen, but they did. So yeah, stick around, subscribe if you're new, and let's call today's subscriber who submitted this story, let's call him Eli. So Eli had a girl in his class, and let's call this girl Gemma, right? So Gemma was already on thin ice. She had a lot of strikes against her for cheating and other academic honesty issues, and the school was being pretty lenient with her, but it was pretty strict, right? I mean, as lenient as they possibly could be. All you need to know is that this girl, Gemma, is on super thin ice. So this story happened during kind of like the Zoom class. Eli is back now, but his school was over Zoom for a very long time. Probably one of the longer, he was one of the last schools to return in person. But all you got to know is this was the end of the kind of the fall term, and there was a very massive test for this class. It was so big that it was like 50% of the grade. Personally, I don't think any class, especially one in high school, should ever have a test that takes up that much of the percentage of the grade, but whatever, man. I'm just telling the story here. And sure enough, right, it was a massive test. It was super hard, and people had to be studying the entire time. And during the day of the test, right, the teacher had a few rules. He's like, you must keep your camera on at all times while taking this, right? It is an online exam, but I need to see what you're doing to make sure that you're not looking at your phone, looking at notes, basically to make sure that you're just not cheating at the end of the day, keeping it like a simple enough, right? But this is a Zoom class. I know how easy it is to cheat. I'm trying to make it as hard as possible for you guys to cheat. So anyways, right, Eli wasn't about to cheat. He's a smart guy. But flash forward to the day of the test, and the teacher's like, all right, everyone, have your cameras on, have your mics unmuted, just to make sure someone wasn't like giving answers or something that was off camera, or they were watching some video explaining the answers to the test. And he's like, all right, guys, cameras on, mics on, I will begin the examination. You will have 60 seconds to, you'll have 60 minutes to finish it. Yeah, 60 seconds to finish this test, guys. Go. You've all failed, L. No, but seriously, right? So anyways, Eli, starts on the test, and he was pretty nervous because it was a pretty big test and was taking up almost half of his grade. But when he starts it, he realizes, you know what, man, this is not too bad. This is pretty easy, right? This is not really an issue at all. However, right, Eli starts to get a little bit bored because he finishes almost all the questions within like 15 minutes. However, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but whenever you finish a test first, you just never want to be the guy who finishes the test first and submits it first. Maybe I'm just like the outlier here, but I just feel like I'm always trying to be second, third. Maybe I just don't want to be first, man. And Eli feels the same way. So he wraps up his test, and it's about like 25 minutes in, and he's like, okay, like whatever, right? I'm like, I don't want to submit it right away because you have to leave the Zoom class as soon as possible. So instead of like looking at his test, he ends up looking at the computer screen, just looking at all the other people who have their Zoom cameras on. And most people are very they're typing away, their eyes are glued to the computer screen. Except there was one girl that he was looking at, Gemma, who I told you a little bit about before, how she was already on thin ice, had a history of cheating. One would have thought if you were on thin ice and if you had been caught cheating before, that if you're going to risk cheating again, well, maybe you would, cheat well or just not be super obvious with your cheating. But I guess Emma didn't get the memo because her phone, she was so clearly on her phone. And Eli was just looking at this like, are you serious? You know when someone looks down and they're on their phone during Zoom, but you can't see the phone? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about she legitimately had her phone out. Like her phone was very clearly on camera. And she was typing on it, and then she would put it down to answer a question, and then she was typing on it again. Guys, if you're gonna, I don't want to give you advice. First of all, never cheat. But if one was to, just open up another tab. Apparently, there wasn't even software to detect that. Don't go on your phone, dude. It's so obvious. And if you're gonna go on your phone, make sure it's not in camera or make sure it's not in sight. So sure enough, right? Eli is like, oh my God, like this is so obvious. But Eli's realizing that, he doesn't think Gemma wants to get caught in this situation, you know what I mean? So he's like, dang, dude, like, I guess Gemma just doesn't realize that her phone is literally out. Her phone is super obvious every single time she checks it. And Eli's like, well, this would be pretty awkward if the teacher saw. And it was almost as if, he kind of, cursed her with that thought. Because as soon, As soon as he thinks this, the teacher, he notices that the teacher goes from like reading a textbook, or how like teachers kind of look down or whatever, to looking up at the Zoom. So he kind of looks up and he looks. And Eli realizes that his eyes are kind of scanning across, because I guess that he was like kind of like routinely going through and checking everyone's camera. And Eli watches as the teacher looks across the board, and Eli quickly looks at Gemma and sees that Gemma is very obviously on her phone. Like, the entire phone is on the Zoom screen. And Eli notices that the teacher is scanning, and then locks eyes with presumably, Gemma's screen, and kind of like squints and gets his head a little closer to be like, am I really seeing that, man? Am I really seeing that? What was to follow was probably, as Eli told me, one of the most awkward situations ever. By the way, Eli told this to me over Instagram. You should go follow me on there and submit your stories. It's in the description. Anyways, though, what followed was probably one of the most awkward situations ever, because the teacher, instead of like sending a private message to, Gemma, or maybe sending her a breakout room request, or just kind of like pulling her to the side to be like, you're done, he was just like, Gemma, like he said it very loudly, and everyone looked up. Like everyone was very clearly, their eyes were following like the test or whatever, but you could tell when he said Gemma that everyone's eyes kind of like shifted and looked right at him. And Gemma, who was on her phone, very blatantly cheating, quickly like grabs her phone and like quickly like brings it down below the screen and looks up and is like, And the teacher's like, Gemma, are you serious? And Gemma's response was like, what? What did I do? And the teacher's like, Gemma, you were so very clearly cheating. And the entire class, the class didn't go silent because they were already silent, but it felt as if they were more silent than they were before, dude. And Gemma's just like speechless. She's like, and she's like, no. And the teacher's like, Gemma, first thing, you can't lie about this because I have the whole thing recorded if you want to really counter me on this. He said, second, I saw you on your phone. Even if you weren't looking at like material that you were cheating with, right? I clearly stated you cannot be looking at anything else because it might be like you might be getting like help from somewhere else. And being on your phone is very clearly like a place where you can get help. And Eli is pretty sure that she was cheating when she was on her phone, because she would like pick up her phone, type something, and then put it down, and then type on the computer like, okay, dude, you were very clearly looking up like the answers to every single question and not doing it discreetly. And Gemma was like, no. And the teacher's like, Gemma, like we should move this to a breakout room. We've already disturbed the class enough. Like, come on now. And the thing is, right, Gemma didn't go down without a fight, dude. Instead of just like accepting the breakout room request and kind of like dealing with the situation privately, she decided that the best idea would be to take this situation public and just have a complete brawl with the teacher over Zoom in front of literally everyone. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment Zoom down below. I will heart your comment, as that is the secret word of the day. And also, if you want to support the channel after this video, go watch a bunch of more videos, or when you have spare time, when you're, I don't know, playing video games or drawing or something. And let me know in the comment section down below when you do this so I can heart it and say thank you. And by the way, Profile Pic Gang is looking pretty strong in the comments too. That's all I gotta say. Anyways, back to the story, because things just got crazy from here. So honestly, in this situation, Eli would have probably just been like, all right, I'll accept my failures. Or at least if I'm arguing about this, if you're saying, I'm not cheating, man, I'm not going to do it in front of everyone. I was given an invitation to go into a breakout room. I would have taken it. But no, Gemma decides that, she's going to stand her ground, and she's going to stand her ground in front of everyone, which just may have just happened to lead to a extremely awkward experience for literally everybody else. But sure enough, right, Gemma's like, no, like, I'm not going to the breakout room. I know that the second I click accept on the breakout room invitation, all you're going to do is tell me that, like, I've failed, and you're going to report me, and then you're going to expel me. I'm going to hold my ground, and I'm going to hold it here. And everyone was just kind of like, oh my God. And the teacher's like, all right, I'm putting a pause on the timer, because the teacher kind of had a 60-minute timer going. So he said, guys, like, don't continue to work on the project. Like, I will tell you when the timer starts again, but we have a little situation going on. He literally called what was going on the situation. Imagine someone refers to you as the situation, dude. You know that you messed up if that ever happened. So after the teacher kind of puts a pause on the timer, he then goes on to be like, Gemma, like, you're distracting everyone. It was so clear that you were cheating on this assignment. Like, you had your phone out. And once again, like, even if you weren't cheating, you were just going on Snapchat or whatever you kids go on nowadays, you couldn't have your phone out in the first place. And I already told you that, like, either way, like, I saw you on your phone. And then Gemma does something so ridiculous it's hard to believe. Or Eli was like, when he heard it, he was like, oh, I definitely got to get my ears checked. Gemma goes on to say, I never had my phone out. And the teacher's like, what? Because the thing is, right, it was so very clear that Gemma's phone was out. And the teacher already told her that the meeting was recorded. Like, it was clear that the meeting was recorded. He could go back and, in fact, not just find the one time that she had her phone out when he caught her, but he could go back and find all the tens of times, right, that she had her phone out. That even, I mean, just Eli saw. Like, Eli saw only a little bit. She probably had her phone out for the beginning as well, not just the middle. And so the professor's like, Gemma, like, come on now. Like, I told you it was recorded. I'm not seeing things. Like, come on, like, just admit it. Just accept your fate. You cheated, or at least you had your phone out and you shouldn't have done that. Accept what happened. And Gemma, instead of being like, okay, literally just left the Zoom meeting. Like, instead of doing it, she just left. She just straight up left. And eventually the teacher's like, oh, okay, well, the teacher was all flustered and everything. And the teacher's like, all right, class, like, I'm going to start the timer in 30 seconds. You may begin. So sure enough, right, Eli's like, all right, I can't turn it in now. He'll know that it's like a little sus that I was just watching the whole thing. So Eli pretend works for another 10 minutes. He hands in the test. He ends up getting an A or something, but that's kind of an irrelevant detail. But the relevant details is what happens next to Gemma. So the thing is, right, the next day, you know, Eli goes into Zoom class, and he is really curious to see if Gemma's going to show up or not. And no, Gemma does not show up. She does not show up at all in the Zoom class. And the next day, Eli goes into the Zoom class. You know who doesn't show up again? Yeah, Gemma. She once again does not show up. So at this point, right, Eli is starting to see a pattern here and starts to realize, okay, something definitely happened to Gemma. The thing is, at the time, Eli was not aware that she was already on super thin ice until one day, you know, Eli was just talking with one of his friends over Discord or something or on the phone. And he's like, dude, did you hear what happened to Gemma? And Eli was like, no. And the guy was like, so Gemma was already on really thin ice for cheating a ton in the past. And basically the school told her that, like, normally they don't give this many extensions, but they're going to give her one last one. However, if she is caught cheating in any classes for the rest of her time at, you know, insert name academy, she will be straight up expelled. So then Eli was like, well, what was the end of, like, I mean, so this guy wasn't in the class, but he did hear about this thing from Eli. And he's like, well, she was very clearly on her phone. And the guy's like, yeah, apparently she got straight up expelled. And Eli's like, so she's gone? Eli's like, yeah, dude. And the moral of the story is don't be an idiot and blatantly go on your phone if you're going to cheat. And also don't cheat, dude, please. Okay, like the video.